And I had those anxiety, and they started becoming like almost crippling because I couldn't get on planes. It was just, I was going to all these doctors and they were like, you have to take this stuff. And I was just afraid of taking anything because I've never taken anything. There was a tea for this. There was, my grandmother wasn't there. So finally, I wasn't going to take a medication because just the idea of taking something, I was like, I was normal before. How can I go back being what I was? Like I didn't have these issues. So what's happening? Long story short, I found this doctor. I had to replace my habits. It was that simple. I had to replace these habits that had created the reality I was living at that moment, which was, really killing me in so many ways, killing my spirit, killing my, and I replace it with good habits. So now instead of smoking cigarettes and having a mocha frappuccino in the morning, I'll go out and do breath work and go out for a run. And, I replace, in one day, I gave up everything because he looked at me, he said, Gisele, he called me Adrenalina. He says, do you want to live? And I said, I do. He's like, so we're going to change my diet. And that's for the first time in my life that I realized that I was really like the one who got myself there, and I was the only person who could get myself out by the choices that I was making. So I had to take full responsibility for what I had created, but it was in my power, only in my power to change that. There were no doctors, nobody who was going to save me. I had to change, the choices I was making, and I did that, and it was incredible because after over a year and a half, like really struggling with anxiety and panic attacks and all that, within 3 months, I was like, I never had another incident, and it was. And once you start meditating, I mean, at that point, this was 20 years ago, right? It wasn't like people were talking about meditation and yoga and any of that. It was just, when you sit in silence and you reflect, which is what we don't really give ourselves time to do because the world is so fast-paced and everything is catching your attention, is trying to throw you off your center. Everything is so busy. It's like an overload of information. To have that space to go inside and reflect and look and really take a step back, I think that was the biggest blessing of my life. So really, I think what could have killed me is what gave me a whole new life. And it was amazing because since then, like everything changed. Like I realized that food is my medicine. I realized that I am the director of my own movie, that I'm creating my reality based on the choices that I'm making, but what I'm choosing to, not only the people I'm choosing to have around in my life, but what type of energy, what kind of thoughts I allow to, what am I feeding? What kind of thoughts am I? So all of that. So that became like a big changing of seasons for me in my early 20s. If you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. It's that simple. And what I realized at that moment, that what I created for myself was not what I wanted. I needed a drastic change. And then it was like, draw the line, stopped everything in one day. And the migraines and all of that, like the consequences of what I had done, I had to deal with them. It took me like 2 weeks, I think. I was like having the worst migraines just because I didn't know if it was the nicotine, the caffeine, the alcohol. I don't know what it was, but it was all of it together. And, but then it was amazing because from that experience, I became so much stronger, and there are lots of different things that happened in my life after that. I feel like every time we get tested, it's like the Super Mario, like the little video game when you go to do the big boss, like you go through all the phases and you go to level 1, the big boss is like one, it's okay to defeat that one, but then the second one is like a tougher big boss, and then the third one is it's life. I feel like that's what life is. You get like the new tools to get equipped, and then you go to the next challenge that is a bigger one, and then is a bigger one. I feel like that's why we're here, to keep seeing how we can expand, how much more we can to grow, to evolve, to expand, to see how strong and how creative and how much we can experience of all this